Welcome to another edition of the Shadow Cast. Today, we're going to be talking about chaos magic. As ever, I'm joined by Chris Ball.
Hi.
And Dave Bray.
Hi.
And our special guest today is Mark Vincent.
Hi, how you doing?
Hello, Mark. Very well, thank you. It's good to have you on this show.
Thanks.
So, chaos magic. First of all, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay. So in a non-occult context, I'm a musician. I play the drums for a living. I have 2 studios. I teach, basically my full-time job. I also do hypnotherapy and coaching when I have time to do that. In an occult context, I'm a chaos magician. I'm assuming you don't know too much about chaos magic at that point. So I'll kind of go into some explanations about what it is and how I think it works. I teach at a shop called Treadwell's in London, which is quite a well-known occult shop. I've been doing that for a very long time, I think 17 years. I've spoken at different conferences, Mind, Body, Spirit show, Glastonbury Occult Conference, that kind of thing. So yeah, and I like doing chaos magic. so there you go.
So that brings us nicely on to the question for us and for our audience.
Mm-hmm.
What exactly is chaos magic?
So chaos magic is a philosophy within the occult, basically. So it was kind of invented by a guy called Pete Carroll. Have you heard of him, Peter Carroll?
Peter Carroll, no.
No, so he died. Unfortunately, he died quite recently. So he kind of invented what I suppose codified what is now known as chaos magic. So chaos magic is more of a philosophy around how magic works. It's non-religious and it's non-doctrinal, but it basically says is that your belief is what makes magic work. And I'm happy to kind of go into how I think that works. And I'm going to say at this point, I'm not speaking for chaos magic. I'm just telling you what I think about it, because that's kind of the idea with it and what drew me to it. But the idea underneath all of it is that your belief itself is a tool, and chaos magicians seek to alter their beliefs to achieve a material end or alter their beliefs to something more useful. So beliefs are not things that kind of happen to you. Your belief can be changed is basically the idea, and changing your beliefs, I think, changes things outside. So that's the potted version of it, but it's a philosophy rather than a doctrine, and as such you can apply any practices to it. So it doesn't really, the most common one used is sigil magic. Have you heard of that?
Only in doing some brief research.
Okay, because I wrote a book about it. Sigil magic is the kind of the main practice that people know about. And while I'm talking about it, I'll get a picture of a sigil so you can see one. So essentially a sigil is a graphic representation of a desire. So something like that. So you take a sentence, I'm being really kind of brief here, but you would take a sentence of something you want. I want a new job, I want more money, something like that. You write it out, you take the vowels out, and then from the remaining consonants, you make an image. And then you do what we call charging the image, which is where, now this again, I'm going to tell you what I think happens when you do that. Is that basically you use a method to focus your mind on the image to the exclusion of everything else. And the standard method, which you may or may not have come across, is bringing yourself to orgasm while you're staring at the sigil. That's the idea. So you can't think of anything else. You can tell chaos magic was invented by men, but that's kind of the standard approach. There's plenty of, I use auto hypnosis quite a lot, self hypnosis, to kind of point my mind at the sigil. And the idea, the kind of meta idea, is that it gets your doubting mechanism out of the way. and it goes into your unconscious, and your unconscious acts upon it. So that's kind of the brief. That's the most commonly kind of known thing that chaos magicians use. One of the reasons I like sigil magic is because it can be quite quick. You can do it in under 5 minutes. You don't need elaborate rituals. What it requires is that your belief that it's going to work. So one of the first sigils I get people to make is my sigils work. So you're kind of building on belief systems all the time. So yeah. There.
So you need to have a lot of courage in your conviction for any positive results. Would that be correct?
No, you just need to do it a lot. What you need is what I call the holy shit moment. So I can give you an experiment that you can all try, which will give you the holy shit moment. So magic, my view is that magic isn't something external to reality. It's intrinsic. It's kind of interwoven into it. And I don't know how deep you want to get into the sort of philosophy or background of it.
Well, very deep would be good. Thank you, Mark.
Oh, okay. Good, strap in. So I trained as a hypnotherapist, and that's kind of what drew me to chaos magic in the first place, because there is a movement in magic called the psychological model of magic. So the simple thing is that it's all happening in your mind. And that's kind of the first thing I started using it for, is to kind of alter myself, change my beliefs about things to more useful beliefs. And I came up with a way of, look at that, it's opened on the page. I came up with a way of thinking about it. I don't know if you can see that. It's a mammoth with a rider on the top.
Yeah.
Okay. So the mammoth and the rider model came out of me wanting to be able to explain to a layman why an alcoholic can't just put a drink down. So I wanted to basically explain why belief systems occur and how they sort of influence. And this is before any occult stuff, right? So that's kind of where that came from. The rider represents you. So your frontal lobes, what you would call your conscious mind. It's the bit you refer to as yourself. And the mammoth is your unconscious. And the reason I can't, it's known as the two systems model. I don't know if you've heard of that. A guy called Daniel Kahneman wrote a book called Thinking Fast and Slow, and that kind of heavily influenced this. And it's about basically how your unconscious mind influences you all the time without you realizing it. The mammoth represents the unconscious. So briefly, the rider attempts to be reasonable and rational. It has a sense of linear time, and it has imagination. So it can think of things it hasn't got and want them. Thinks ahead, right? And it's the bit that tries to pay attention and concentrate on things. Hopefully it's the bit you're using when I'm speaking at the moment. Occasionally the mammoth will interject with random thoughts, right? Have I left the gas on? What am I doing tomorrow? So they're two interacting systems, but broadly speaking, the rider is the rational system. It's the one you think is you. And it is able to problem solve at a distance. So it can kind of think of something that hasn't happened before and think of a way to acquire it. For example, it's how we invent things or how art is produced, right? The mammoth is a reactive system, and it has no sense of linear time. So it exists in the now. And this is why you get these conflicts all the time between what you should do and what you feel like you want to do right now. And in hypnosis, we use a thing called parts work. So we kind of represent these two parts. Is this all making sense so far?
Oh yes, definitely.
Good.
Yes.
Good. Stop me if I go sort of off on too many tangents. But fundamentally, the mammoth is in charge. You're taking a ride on a machine that's been evolving for millions of years. It already knows what to do, and it's my belief that kind of underlying it all, your unconscious fundamentally knows everything you need to do and that you want. So in some occult traditions, they refer to this as true will. You may have come across that idea before, right? Okay, and a lot of, particularly in a tradition called Thelema, and I don't want to speak too much for them, but they have this whole thing about Aleister Crowley. You've heard of him? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, using heroin to uncover your true will, that sort of thing. But they have this idea of uncovering your true will, right? So to me, the mammoth represents that. But I don't think anything's fixed. There is no true will. It changes all the time. It has fundamental drivers, but basically the mammoth is the lens through which you kind of experience reality. So the rider comes up with a thought, the mammoth tells you how you feel about it. Put the two together, you get reality. Okay, so it's those two things. The mammoth is, so the mammoth performs magic all the time by dint of existing. So it's not something you do, it's something you are. So your unconscious is kind of, on a purely psychological level, your unconscious is taking you towards familiar things that it thinks are safe all the time, right? So it's why you'll often, and it will do that even if it'll hurt you in the long term. So people who smoke when they're stressed, right? In the short term, they feel like it's calming them down. So the mammoth has come up with a mechanism to produce a safe feeling in the short term. And the mammoth's only job is to keep you alive. That's its kind of fundamental driver. And it does this by saying, is this dangerous and is it safe? It will take you towards things that it thinks are safe, and it will take you away from things that it thinks are dangerous. Mm-hmm. And it tells you that by producing sensations in your nervous system. So basically, the mammoth is driving you anyway. You're just taking a ride on top of it. Your conscious brain is probably directly employed about 10% of the day. Its thinking is hard, it's expensive, it uses glycogen, sodium. You know, it uses energy to think. That's why exams are tiring, for example. What we try and do as chaos, or at least what I try and do as a chaos magician, is to persuade the mammoth that what I want is a good idea and get it to take me towards it. And this is, when I teach this, I explain that's the difference between, we do magic, not miracles. So I can't conjure a pile of money in front of you, but what I can do is use, so sigils are a good way of talking to the mammoth. So the mammoth works in emotion, it works in metaphor. It doesn't understand words, it understands feelings and desire and direction. So the sigil gives me a way of transforming a conscious thought into a metaphorical representation, so I can kind of give it an instruction. So I can kind of say to it, and again, this is where you've got to be a little bit careful, because the mammoth picks up on every upside and downside of the instruction before you've even realized it's done it. So it's something like, and I can never remember which way around this is, it's something like 10 times faster and 4 times stronger than you. So it reacts before you've even realized. It's called the cognitive gap. So it's the gap between you having the thought and realizing you've got the thought. A good book to read on this is called The Chimp Paradox by Steve Peters. It's really, really good. That explains, he uses a chimp and a human, but it's the same idea. You can't fight the mammoth because it's a mammoth. If you try and fight it, it will either sit down or it will become aggressive. And that's when you start to get problems. So it's why you say things you don't mean when you're angry. It's why you do stupid shit when you're very, very stressed, or you become irrational. So what we're trying to do as chaos magicians is recognize this, recognize the things that drive the mammoth, and then direct it towards things that are useful for us. So that's kind of the basic underlying mechanism I think is going on. So I'll shut up there for a minute. Is there anything you want to ask about that? I just keep going.
Please feel free to. What I would ask at this point is, why were you attracted to chaos magic to begin with? What was it about it that you found appealing?
That's an interesting one. It's hard to remember because I was always interested in the occult as a teenager. So I was a bit of a weirdo, and like I play in a lot of death and black metal bands, and there's sort of the whole imagery with that, and I just kind of was a bit like, oh, anything with pentagrams on it, please, when I was like 15 or 16. Bought the Satanic Bible, LaVey's book. I've still got it. I quite like some of LaVey's stuff. And my first occult practice was Santeria. Have you heard of that? South American voodoo. So, but I did like a hybrid version of it. And that was my first experience of magic doing something, and it scared the shit out of me to the point where I didn't touch it for 15 years. Now, just to clarify here, I make no claims either way about whether spirits exist or whether they don't. I don't know, because a lot of the stuff I've experienced could be a hallucination. It could be, and as a chaos magician, I'm not particularly bothered whether they do or not. I'm concerned with that I get the outcome that I want. So anyway, that was kind of the first thing I tried. And then I kind of went away from it for a while, and I started learning hypnosis in 2008. So clinical hypnotherapy. I did 2 years of that, and started teaching at Treadwell's. Started teaching hypnosis stuff at Treadwell's, and just kind of came across it by osmosis. I think I just sort of became exposed to it. I was like, oh, I there's a lot of pretense in the occult. Chaos magic mostly doesn't have that. So the thing I like about it is that you can put your own stamp on it, and that actually, so you can step into practicing some kind of occult discipline without having to do initiations or read 6 million books. You can get a pen and paper and you can start already. And it's fun as well. That's the other thing. This is the other thing that people forget with all of this stuff. It's supposed to be enjoyable. It's not there can be it can be frivolent and sacred at the same time. Frivolous, sorry, and sacred at the same time. I invented a new word there. And I don't think they're mutually exclusive. It doesn't have to be po-faced and terribly serious. And there are aspects of it that I take very seriously, and there are aspects but like the whole beauty of it is that if you were practicing chaos magic, you might do it totally differently. So I think that's kind of how I came to it, and it just kind of, my other interest is philosophy of mind, so I started looking into a thing called the hard problem of consciousness, which again I won't go into too much because that is can I swear on here?
Can he, John?
Can I swear? Like, it's a head fuck. Like the hard problem of consciousness. It's why you have it in the first place, why it's even there. And there's a guy called David Chalmers who I stumbled across and started reading all of his stuff about it and listening to podcasts with him. And for about a year, I thought this is either the most profound thing I've ever come across or it's complete shit. And obviously, I landed on the former. It's and became very interested in the nature of consciousness. This idea, there's something going on here that you appear to be having an experience, and it all ties together. The way I think about how hypnosis works and how chaos magic works, and these ideas in philosophy of mind, because I think I stick my neck out here and go to kind of the end game without explaining it. I think this is all mind. I think it's consciousness all the way down. Like the idea of material things aren't what we think they are. Let's put it that way. But again, it's just kind of where I'm at the moment. You ask me in 2 years, I might have totally changed my mind and reserve the right to do so. So yeah, that's how I came across it, basically.
So you said that when you started to practice this South American magic, that obviously it was quite a distressing experience.
Yes.
Do you mind if we ask a little bit more about that?
I'll happily tell you about it. I can tell you exactly what happened, exactly how I did it as well, so you can repeat it at home. So I had a friend. This was a long time ago. I must have been 19 or 20. And he and I were both interested in the occult. And I bought a book called Urban Voodoo, which is still available. And the thing I liked about Urban Voodoo is that it told you exactly what to do. Exactly when to do it. So a lot of occult books are quite waffly. and they'll kind of talk around things. It's changed quite a lot now. And it was the other thing I liked about chaos magic. It's very do this, because I like to be able to, I'm a musician. I like to get my hands on things and do them and see what happens. And so I set up an altar and I set up a vessel, because in Santeria, or now this isn't, I can't think of the word. It's not traditional Santeria. It's like a hybrid version. I mean, I've met Santeria priests in New Orleans and broadly what would be called voodoo priests and priestesses, and spoken to them about it. But the stuff I've not been initiated, right? So this isn't the official version, if you like. But it's really influenced how I do magic from that point on. So one of the things is you pay the spirits. If you conjure a spirit and it does something for you, you pay it. Which again, it just, a lot of this stuff just kind of sits with me. It's like, that makes sense. Why would it do something for me for free? And so I got a vessel and I did the conjuration for 7 days, and I asked for luck. Now, at the time, I'd just come out of music school, and I was driving trucks for Curry's, which was a perfectly good job, and wanted to start playing professionally and earning money as a drummer. So I did this incantation for 7 days. On the 8th day, I got a phone call from my old drum teacher, who left me his drumming practice. So yeah, that was quite pleased with that. So, and then I thought, okay, well, let's do it. Let's do something else. So, and that was how I became a professional musician. From that, the directly. Now, again, I'm not, it could be coincidence. I don't know. Again, as a chaos magician, I don't particularly care. I got what I wanted. So my friend and I were like, okay, well, let's see if we can test it a little bit. Let's see what happens if we're a bit more specific. So we did the same spirit, conjured it. So you use a pendulum to speak to it, the yes and the no. You hold the pendulum. Can you get right? Okay. Yeah. Which also, slight tangent, fits in with how I think about it, because I think I'm really just talking to my unconscious, in one way or another. Okay. And we asked for an even amount of money, less than 50 quid. An amount of money less than 50 quid that could be split between us, and it would be obvious that it was the spirit delivering it. And the next day I walked up into the high street with my friend and sitting in the cash machine with 2 £20 notes.
Right.
So again, could be coincidence, don't know. Took the £20 notes out, 20 each, go to the local graveyard, leave a bottle of rum there. That's the payment. And you pay the spirit. There's another tradition where they call it, you have the spirit ride you, it sits in you, and you smoke cigars and drink so it can experience things. We weren't doing that. We were just paying it. So I then tried it again, and I asked for more money this time. So we just said more money, went out of the room, down the road, and under a yellow VW camper was £100 in a rolled up roll of cash in a rubber band. So that was the last good thing that happened. At that point, so my friend left and he moved to America, and then the short version is I asked for something and forgot to pay for it. And they in that tradition, they get angry if you don't pay them. And I started having odd experiences, let's put it that way, which basically culminated in one night lying in my room, looking up and seeing a book fly out of the bookshelf. No, it didn't actually fly. I was having a waking dream.
Okay.
Scared the crap out of me. Woke up, turned the light on, went back to bed, fell asleep, woke up again, looked over where the altar was and saw the black figure standing there over it, which was still there when I turned the light on for about 20 seconds. And I was done at that point. I took it down. And again, this is so I'm making no objective assertions about that. Was definitely a spirit. I don't know. But that kind of set up my view that magic did something. There was something to it. And yeah, and I didn't touch that system. I've only just started doing it again in the last year, actually. I've kind of gone back to it. But it, you know, that was kind of my first introduction to what I call serious magical practice. And I'm still the only thing I would say that I'm convinced of is that magic does something. You know, I wouldn't tell you what it is every single time, but it does something. Whether it's, so my view is that your unconscious, sorry, I'm going to just get myself in a straight line here. I don't think your mind is separate from everything else. I think it's all kind of this giant interconnected system. So that's how I, you know, even when I'm doing things to affect myself, I think I'm affecting the outside anyway. Yeah, that sounds awfully arrogant, doesn't it? but it's little nudges most of the time, right? It's not like I can control the weather or anything. Generally, what I'm trying to do is kind of nudge the odds in my favor as much as possible. So yeah, that was my first sort of serious experience of it. I've had a couple since, but that was probably the most profound one because it really did frighten me quite a lot. So, yeah.
Do you think when you first started practicing that maybe you were attracted by the sense of rebelliousness that can be associated with this kind of way of life?
Probably. I mean, it went with the music. The occult imagery went with the music. So I'm doing that a lot, I've realized. The occult image, yeah, for sure. And it's just, it's interesting, you know. This is what I have my kind of hypothesis on all of occult is that even though we've developed rationally a long way, there's something about us that craves ritual. And I think ritual is quite good for people anyway. And it doesn't have to be like a cult ritual, just, you know, it's why we still have superstitions and why we still say touch wood and all of these things. There's something in our, and if you want to kind of look at it from an evolutionary point of view, it creates a form of repetitive certainty. And it's quite good for us. And I've been to a lot of sort of pagan rituals and open rituals, so the non kind of initiated ones. And they're quite fun, and you feel like you just feel quite good doing them. It's sort of you're participating in something with a lot of other people. Playing in a band's the same sort of thing, you know. It's why music is good for you, because it produces this kind of this repetition, and repetition produces a form of, it calms the mammoth down. That's how I think about it. So this is why it's what happens in hypnosis. Or certainly in hypnotherapy, you're trying to produce a calm, focused state through repeating things. And there's actually a technique in chaos magic, or a method we use called, to invoke a thing called glossolalia, speaking in tongues.
Oh,
so
okay.
something else. I meant to give you an experiment earlier, and I never did, and I'll give you two now, right? So, the glossolalia one's it's interesting, right? So pick a word and put a timer on for 5 minutes and say it for 5 minutes without stopping, and just observe what happens in your mind, because the word starts to lose its meaning, and it becomes something else, and it produces an effect. By doing it, saying it over and over and over, and you start to enter a trance of sorts. It becomes kind of very narrow and focused, and other things kind of move away. So the other experiment you can try to give yourself the holy shit moment is called the tall woman with pink heels. So if you want to, magic, and particularly chaos magic, is experiential. I can explain this to you till I'm blue in the face. You won't get it until you've done it. It's like playing an instrument. Again, I can tell you the theory all day until you stick your hands on it. It doesn't mean anything. But try this. So for the next 2 weeks, twice a day, for 30 seconds each time, close your eyes and imagine a tall woman in pink heels. All right, you can imagine her however you like. You might want to visualize her. You might hear her voice, put her in a context. Send me an email when you see her. because you will. And you'll probably see her after you've forgotten that you've done it. What tends to happen is people will do it and then think, oh, it hasn't worked. And then a couple of months later, she'll turn up. And just to give you an idea, I usually have like a 3 to 6 month window. After that, it probably hasn't quote unquote worked. But what all you're doing is exposing your unconscious to an idea again and again and again. And so if you do that, it starts looking for it. So it's not that you're magicking up the tall woman in pink heels, it's that you're unconsciously looking for her.
Right, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that to me is the core bit of chaos magic. It's like when you want a new car and you want a red Ferrari and you start seeing them everywhere. It's not that there's more of them. It's just you've altered your belief lens. So your unconscious starts seeking it. The most mundane version of this, which you will have all had, is when you're in the pub and you're talking about a film and you're trying to remember the actor and like the lead actor or actress, and you cannot for the life of you remember their name. And then you stop 20 minutes, you start talking about something else, and 20 minutes later it pops into your head. It's because your unconscious goes looking for it. So that's kind of the mechanism that's going on. And again, I can explain the mechanism, but if you try it out and see what happens, then you get an experience of what it is that we're doing as magicians, basically. You might be a bit disappointed because it's not that we're enacting nudges all the time, but it will give you you'll get the jolt, oh my God, oh there she is, and that's kind of what we're looking for all the time. So, and the interesting thing is it tends to turn up when you've forgotten about it. So one of the principles in chaos magic is called fire and forget. Have you heard that?
Right. No.
You do the work and don't think about it. So it's a bit like planting a seed and then leaving it alone and not going back to. So it's, again, none of this stuff is that far removed from things you will have come across already. It's just got the occult wording with it, I suppose. So try it and let me know.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, that's fascinating stuff. Let's take some questions at this point. First of all, from Chris.
Hi, Mark.
Hi.
What kind of things can you be used to achieve this chaos magic?
Oh, God. That depends on your beliefs, basically. So every chaos magician will tell you something slightly different. So I can tell you what I use it for. I use it for on a day-to-day basis, and I don't do it all the time. I have periods where I don't touch it. But I use it for habit alteration. So one of the things I used it for was dealing with stage fright. I used to have horrendous stage fright, and I used sigil magic to work on that. So we use it a lot. In a lot of ways, I use it self-help with pictures, basically. But I tend to find, for me, it's most effective when it's turned this way rather than that way. Yeah. Because I think they're an interacting system anyway. I've used it for finances before. I've used it for, and again, it's not really magicking money. It's the thing I use it most commonly for is to help me be in, or help put people in my way that can help me with different things. So I'm enhancing opportunity, nudging probability in my favor. And I'm going to stress nudging, right? That's all you're ever doing with it. So I have a YouTube channel. I don't update it very often, but I did a video about winning the lottery using chaos magic, which is sadly my most watched one for all the wrong reasons. Because the bottom line is you are nudging probability. The odds of you having enough of a shove on reality to win the jackpot is so negligible, it's not worth trying.
Yeah.
What you can, so think of it like stacking cumulative nudges all the time. So if you're doing it for confidence with money, for example, you start with little wins. And one of the things I often suggest to people to do is, if you want to try sigil magic, make sigils to find pennies on the ground. So you program, you tell the mammoth to start looking for small denominations. and then do 10p's, and then do pound coins and work your way up from there. So there you go. You can also use it to summon demons, but that's my secret.
I don't think I'll do that.
No.
Just another one. Is it a self-improvement thing as well? The chaos magic.
I mean, it depends. So chaos magicians don't believe. Well, okay. Chaos magic believes that magic is the end in itself, that nothing goes anywhere. This is all a chaotic system. So it's only improvement from the person's point of view. It's more, I try and use it to enact more useful beliefs to where I am at the moment. And that's it, really. So yeah, I suppose, but yeah, I'm quite happy to call it that. If I come across people who've never had any experience with it before, one way of looking at it is coaching with symbols, or NLP with pictures. It's all the same thing, I'm sort of not that precious about it being an occult thing. But chaos magicians don't necessarily see it in terms of improvement, because nothing goes anywhere. It just is. Yeah. So there you go.
Do you think, as well, Mark? Do you think they used to use it in medieval times as well?
No. Chaos magic's new. Chaos magic, as we understand, I mean, sigils have been around forever.
Yeah.
Hieroglyphs are forms of sigils. They're just graphic representations of linguistic structures and desire. No, chaos magic, as we know it, was invented by Pete Carroll in the 70s. But again, it's not a system, it's a philosophy. It's just the idea that all magic works on your belief. That's it. There's nothing else to it. So you can apply like ceremonial magic. Did you know John Dee? Have you heard of him? You guys?
No, I don't think I have. No.
You should go and look up, research John Dee. He was a very famous magician, Elizabethan, I believe. So you could apply his system, which is incredibly elaborate. Like, requires tables and books and candles and 9-foot circles. You can apply chaos magic principles to that. Equally, you can get a pile of dirt from your garden and spit on it, and if you believe deeply enough that will make it magical and do the thing you want it to, it'll do the same thing, because the underlying thing is your belief. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Back to you, Lee.
That's okay.
Thank you, Chris. Could we have a couple of questions from Dave?
Yeah, I just thought from Chris. So obviously we established it's more regarded as modern magic.
Mm-hmm.
There's obviously some of the people you mentioned. Is there a guy called Osmond Spare that was
Correct.
involved?
Yeah, Osmond Spare.
He has some relationship with Aleister Crowley as well.
Possibly. Yeah, I'm not great on my occult history, I'm afraid.
But obviously it's to do with is it Gnosis and Gnostic state?
Yes.
So focusing on, as you said, on one thing. That's why they use those signals. You're just focusing on that and getting rid of all the other things around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So do you know anything much about Osmond Spare at all?
So Spare's kind of the father of sigil magic. And I know a little bit about him. But he was the first guy to coin the idea of like this specific fire and forget thing, where you make the sigil, you charge the sigil, you destroy the sigil, then you forget about it, which was, as far as I'm aware, relatively unique in the occult. And the idea of gnosis. So in chaos magic, and certainly in my interpretation of chaos magic, gnosis is the state of no mind. So this is one of those things that, again, isn't very well explained and can be quite hard to wrap your head around. But I'll give you a thing you can try to experience it. Do any of you meditate?
I do sometimes.
I've been involved with a little meditation, yeah.
Well, yes.
So if you meditate, so one of the biggest sort of misunderstandings around meditation is that the point of it is to get your brain to be quiet. And it's not the point at all, in my opinion. the purpose of meditation is to get the rider to observe the mammoth. That's it. Hypnosis is the opposite. Hypnosis is when you get the rider to go to sleep. So if you want to experience gnosis, if you sit with a timer for 10 minutes and just stare at the wall and then just start noticing the thoughts that come, it's meditation, right? And if you do it for long enough, the mammoth gets bored of thinking and stops for a bit. That's gnosis. And if you experience that, there's just nothing there. It just stops temporarily, and then you'll start thinking again. And what we do as chaos magicians, again, is try and expand the amount of time that gap is there, because that's where you put the sigils, in the gaps between the thoughts. That's gnosis. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's you can't try and do it. The harder you try, and this comes up a lot, this idea of what you resist persists. The harder you try and make it happen, the less likely it is to happen. So if you try and stop thinking, nothing happens. Have you ever tried to worry? If you haven't, I suggest you give it a go. It's very interesting. It's not possible. It's called reciprocal inhibition. Worrying's unconscious. If you consciously try and do it, it becomes really hard. And so you can use those things. So in order to experience gnosis, that's the simplest thing you can do. Stick a timer on, stare at the wall, and just try and watch your thoughts. And you'll notice, if you've meditated before, you get caught up in them. You start to kind of go into them, and then you pull yourself out. And it's the gaps you're looking for. The other thing you can try is, I don't know if you've got any experience with self-hypnosis or anything like that, but you can get a self-hypnosis recording and just stick it on, lie on your bed, and you can only, deep gnosis you will only be aware of when you come out of it. You can't know it. So it's a bit like waking up. You kind of go like this, okay? The term is hypnagogic, so you're kind of going to sleep, and then hypnopompic is coming up. So what happens is when you do like a hypnosis thing, at certain points you will realize you've stopped paying attention to the person talking to you. You sort of go, you kind of jump out of it like that, like somebody poking you when you're daydreaming or something. Yeah, there. That's what the holy shit moment feels like, by the way. It feels exactly the same. And so when you, and by practicing that, you kind of teach your unconscious that that's what you want it to do, and it does it a little more quickly. So I can drop myself into a reasonably deep trance pretty fast, because I've done it so much, because I've trained as a hypnotherapist. But that's, in terms of that would be more useful to you in understanding what I mean, certainly by gnosis, is just by trying that. So yeah.
Mark, do you ever use guided meditation in your practice?
Yes and no. So I'm gonna chuck a curveball at that, because I don't think you can have guided meditation. So most things that meditation and hypnosis are very, very close to each other, but they're not the same. So you go back to the rider and the mammoth. Meditation is the rider watching the mammoth. That's literally it. It's nothing else. It's a very conscious activity. So there's several ways of achieving it, but if you're drifting off with the fairies, right, and at that point you're not meditating. You're becoming hypnotized. It's a different state. Hypnosis is when you put the rider to sleep and allow the mammoth to take over. So you bring the unconscious forward. That to me is the difference between the two. But yes, I use guided recordings from time to time. Most of the time these days I spend, I do kind of, if I do meditation practices, I do them for quite a long time. I'll sit in a chair for 30 minutes, just staring at a spot on the wall. And because I've found that, and you don't have to do this, but you get a really interesting effect, is the gaps in your thoughts become longer and longer. over time. And I've also found that if I keep my eyes open when I meditate, I have a stronger effect. So I don't drift off. I don't go away with the fairies quite so much, because I don't want that. I want to be here and observe the thought. But I use, if I've had a bit of a crappy day and I want to just relax, I'll maybe put a hypnosis record in, or drink a beer like a normal person. So, but yeah, I like them. You know, it's they're quite fun.
Mark, I've got one question to ask you.
Sure.
How much success have you had nudging people towards you?
My hit rate at the moment is about 20%. So for every 10 sigils I do, I'll expect a result on 2 of them. That changes over time. So I track it when I can be bothered. Generally, and I'm not saying, so this is the thing, it's occult, it's art, it's psychology, it's not physics. So I can tell you, and again, I'm very careful to kind of, you probably noticed I hedge my claims quite a lot, because again, it's something I like to do, it's something I find very effective, and I think if you use it in particular ways, it has a certain effect. But at the moment, I run about 2 out of 10, which is pretty good, I think. But also, it's not, you don't just do the sigil. You do things to allow the sigil to work. And a lot of the time, so I have a thing called the protocol of intent that I teach in my class. So there's 6 questions. What do I want? What difference does it make if I get it? How am I going to get it? Who's going to help me? When am I going to do it? And what's stopping me? And which are very kind of standard kind of coaching questions, except for the last one, which tends to be quite revealing. But the bit that nobody answers is the second one, what changes? So if you win a load of money, do you remember the guy who won 9 million quid on the lottery?
Yeah.
Man, and he spent it all in a year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So everybody looks at him and goes, oh, what a moron. Well, so if you look at it like this, what changes when he wins that money? So he's a working class guy, right, with 9 million quid. That's a very confusing position to be in. So his unconscious is looking at it all the time and going, what does this mean? So it's very destabilizing, first off. He doesn't know who his friends are anymore because everybody wants a piece of the money. And this is just my view on it, okay? He doesn't know who his friends are, and he doesn't really fit anywhere. Because you can't be working class with 9 million quid. You're something else.
Yeah.
And if you didn't have any help managing that, this is why people who win vast amounts of money on the lottery get rid of it really quickly.
Yeah.
I think it's usually within 5 years. It's a very, very high percentage of people who win massive amounts of money and inherit massive amounts of money. Because the unconscious looks at it, the mammoth looks at it and goes, oh, this is new, I don't like that. Right? And on the surface, it seems like a good thing. But the mammoth doesn't understand money. It understands familiar, unfamiliar, safe, unsafe. Anything unfamiliar, it will get rid of. And to me, that's what he did. And the most interesting thing was he spent it on drugs and partying with his friends. So he was almost saying to his friends, please don't leave me, please don't leave me. None of this will have been thought through, but it's the unconscious consequence of a desire. It's careful what you wish for, basically.
Yeah.
And he will have experienced a thing that we in chaos magic we call lust of result, which is where the outcome becomes a threat in and of itself. Which is why I always ask those questions, and I ask them a minimum of 3 times. And I get people who I teach to do the same thing. And you'll very often find that you don't need to do the magic bit. The answer's kind of, most of the things most people want is staring them in the face. They're just afraid to take them for one reason or another. Most people don't really want, huge amounts of money or whatever. They want one common one I get is writer's block. I get a lot of people come with writer's block. And if you run the protocol, what it does is it gets to what's actually, because writer's block isn't a thing, it's fear of social judgment. It's the animal in your head going, oh God, they might think it's shit, don't do it. but then you can point sigils at that. But the sigils then, instead of become I'm a famous author, they become I don't know, I release my fear around writing or something. You know, it's different. Does that make sense? So you point it at the underlying driver, and you get a bigger result.
Yeah, a bigger, yeah.
That's how I see it. And but that's also, you can do it for you can try it for all sorts of things, and sometimes you'll get results that are very difficult to explain. Right, so it's what I call the X factor. You would just, stuff will happen. Synchronicity. You come across that idea, Carl Jung? That's a big fact. That's a big part of it as well. So you're attempting to increase synchronicity, but on a day-to-day basis, that's kind of how I work with it, and I ask these questions around it. And you'll often find, I would say 80 to 90% of the time, if you ask the questions in the order and you do it enough and reflect on it, you don't really need the sigil. You just need to get off your ass and go and do it.
Just do it, innit?
Yeah, well, no, it's true. And but then the sigils become a tool for, again, it's an enhancement rather than a replacement. So you have to give it a way of work. And I said, we're not performing miracles. We're doing magic, and magic is the art of nudging probability in your favor. So.
Okay, thank you for that, Mark. Back to you, Lee.
How much group work do you tend to do? Is it a small proportion of your practice?
I am currently in the process of joining a group. Up until last year, I'd only done work on my own and with two other people. I got put off magical groups because of the politics that I'd come across. And I've worked for myself for too long, so I'm just kind of, a bit used to that sort of thing. But most of the stuff I do is for myself. But I've started kind of pairing up with different people, and I'm working with a group at the moment, going through their sort of initiatory process, I suppose, of doing it, which I'm quite enjoying. And again, that's the main thing with it. Like it's as I said, it's supposed to be fun. So come back to me in a year, and I'll probably be doing group work and nothing else.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Who knows?
Let's take a question from Dave.
Okay, so obviously you mentioned about changing maybe how you think and how things over your life change, and this maybe helps you to see things in a different way.
Mm.
Do you find do other people maybe that you've worked with or practiced have various different beliefs that affect the way they go ahead with it, carry on forward?
Well, your beliefs, to me, so when we're talking about beliefs, these are, I'll define how I think about it. So your beliefs are like your beliefs are formed through repetition. Once you're over the age of 7, it's things that you're exposed to over and over again. And your deep, underlying beliefs are formed when you're very, very young, and you learn them almost through a process of hypnosis. You learn through experience and observation. So I'll give you an example of that. Have you ever heard of a thing called pre-verbal anxiety? So babies can get it if they have a stressed mother. So if the mother has anxiety, the child can pick that up almost immediately and develop anxiety later on in life. That can't be explained. You just kind of like it, and you have certain associations that you learn. So these beliefs, they're like the, what's the word for it? Like on a computer, they're like the kind of base software that drives everything else. Mm. And the more simple the belief is,
like the kernel, or something they call it, isn't it?
Sorry?
At the ground roots of the computer, like the kernel, the software below.
Probably, yeah, something like that. I don't want to say any terms in case I get it wrong. Like the hard drive, almost. It kind of.
Yeah.
So there are certain things that you believe about yourself that will never change because you learn them really early. And they are often around interactions with other people. So, like, other people can't be trusted is one of them. Things around how you interact with money, stuff. They tend to be things you learn from your parents, right? So then, but they direct everything you do. So I'm not. This is something that's probably contradicts what I've said before, but I don't necessarily believe you can change all of your underlying belief systems. What you can do is bring them to light and point them at something useful. So you can kind of alter how they come out, if that makes sense. And again, this is where sigil magic is useful. So everyone has beliefs that are interferences, basically. That's probably a better way of thinking about it. You've got two types of beliefs: beliefs that help you and beliefs that hinder you. So everyone has these beliefs that that get in the way, and that's something sigil magic can be quite useful for. But it's not necessarily about entirely altering them. Sometimes it's just about redirecting them. So.
So I think one of the things that I'll be taking away from this is the importance of psychology, and maybe unconscious psychology, in chaos magic.
Well, this is my approach to it. So if you asked another chaos magician, they might tell you something totally different. And that, again, that's the beauty of it, because the underlying, the only thing we would agree on is the belief being the driver. Because there are chaos magicians who believe that spirits exist, and that their belief makes the spirits do what they want it to do. The details are kind of how every chaos magician views it is totally different. There are some chaos magicians who are very deep into the philosophy of it. I'm really interested in that, like the sort of underlying nature of reality, I suppose. And then there are some who have no interest in that at all. But all of us generally would come together on this thought, the philosophy that the belief is what drives the magic. That's basically where we all kind of go like this. I know chaos magicians who work with Indian deities, for example. I know chaos magicians who only do sigil magic. I know chaos magicians who are very, like, some of the stuff you'd see them do, you'd think, what the hell, how's that, how's that magic? There's a movement within chaos magic called Discordianism. If you want to see something really weird, look up Discordian. They're too strange for me. So Discordians believe, now again, this is my understanding of it. You'd have to speak to one of them to really understand it. But they believe that the absurdity itself is part of what makes it work. That it's all a bit ridiculous. So they'll use like plastic knives and crayons and things like that, but that's kind of part of what drives it. So it's in terms of how it's practiced, it's really broad, and all I'm presenting here is my view, but the underlying thing that connects all chaos magicians is the belief is the tool. And I go back to that example where if you could equally do a very elaborate magical ritual, drawing things in Hebrew on the floor at the right time of day, or you could go into your garden, get a piece of dirt and spit on it. And if you deeply believe that was going to give you the magical result, then it would work just as well. And that's what's so great about it. You can take the principles. What I often tell students when I'm teaching them, first off, I'm an expert, not an authority. And I'm not even sure I'm an expert, but nothing I say is authority. There's no dogma. But secondly, you've got to take the things that I say that make sense and run with them, and ditch the things that don't. And to that, go back to learning an instrument. It's like you've got the best way to learn an instrument is to start with the things that you like. If a chaos magic makes sense, try it. If it doesn't, don't. But that would be the connecting thread.
Well, we're almost out of time, but for our viewers, how can they find out more about you and your work?
So I have a website called the Chaos Chamber. It's chaoschamber.com, I think. It's got a load of videos on there of me making sigils. So if you want to try them out, you can literally just copy what I'm doing. And Treadwell's books, If you Google them, I do workshops. I do online workshops for them every month, and then I do face-to-face from time to time. And I'm speaking at a moot called Magic in It next week in Bristol, and they're quite fun. And I occasionally do those things, and I list them on my website. So, yeah, there you go.
Well, you've been a fascinating guest. We'd like to thank you very much for your input today.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Mark.
Mark
Thank you,
Vincent,
Mark.
thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks very much.
So it's goodbye from me, and it's goodbye from Chris
Bye.
and from Dave.
Bye.
We'll see you again on the Shadowcast.